problems really fast. So there is the chance we could have numerous flash flood warnings issued. We have several of those issued west of us, none in our area, but I have a feeling before the day is over, we probably will. This dark shade of red, these are your flash flood warnings, and they cover a huge chunk of that main line west of Interstate 59, west of Hattiesburg. None for our area yet, but the risk is certainly there with the fact that this thing is going to just drop right to Interstate 10 at about 1 and 2 this afternoon and then just stay there for the next several hours. So the reason why we're on the air is because of a tornado warning that is for northwestern Washington County. It includes Milry. It doesn't include anyone else in our viewing area, but this is probably going to be the first of several warnings we end up dealing with from this nasty line of heavy rain and lightning that's tracking its way to the east at about 40 miles per hour. Weather Service is staying with the possibility of a tornado, but the main threat by far is going to be straight line winds in excess of 60 miles an hour. Matt's just pulled up the velocity where we try to find that green and red connection, the inbound and outbound wind flow, and we're just not really seeing it. Matt's also pulling up a severe thunderstorm warning that includes northern Clarke County from Grove Hill up to Thomasville, and that is an indication of rotation. Now, there is no tornado warning for this area, but what Matt just pointed at shows that we could see that upgraded to a tornado warning based on this. Right around State Highway 154, west of US 43, north of US 84, and the Weather Service, I'm just noticing this on the monitor, Matt, they mentioned that. They said that it's starting to organize southwest of Thomasville. It's still broad. That's why they haven't fired off on a tornado warning yet, but they're going to watch that closely, probably for a couple more scans.
Yeah, and certainly if you're in Thomasville, just go ahead and treat it like one. Make sure you stay inside, stay away from the windows, because we do have a strong circulation there. Once again, just off to the south and west of Thomasville, and this is moving northeast, so this is going to come in to the Thomasville area. So if you're watching us from northern Clarke County in and around the Thomasville area, just treat it like it's a tornado. Stay inside, stay away from your windows, and don't go out in the car and drive around here in the next few minutes. Let this thing pass by. It won't be long. This will get through pretty quickly. It'll be the next 15 minutes or so. It'll be moving through town, so you don't have to worry about it for too long, but just be aware that at the very least, we've got a strong gust of wind coming through for you up there in Thomasville. That's not the main thing, but it's one of the things we're keeping an eye on here right now.
We sure are, Matt. Yeah, in case you're just joining us, I'm meteorologist Michael White, along with meteorologist Matt Barentine. We've sort of taken over Good Day Gulf Coast because the weather's gone downhill really fast in the last 10 minutes because of a tornado warning that includes northwest Washington County, includes Milry and Yarbo, and one that could potentially be issued for northern Clarke County in the next several minutes. And it's because of a signature that if you watch this loop right there, a possible tornado that was moving north of Waynesboro and crossing over US 45. Now, is the tornadic signature a lot weaker now? Yes. So even if there's no tornado in this storm right now, the tremendous force of the straight line winds are what we're really going to have to watch for and monitor carefully. I have no idea what we're looking at in that side monitor. Control room, what is that shot?
Is that Frisco State?
That's, I know it's Hal, but where is Hal right now? He's in Escambia County. Okay, so that's far from where these storms, where we've got these severe storms in North Clarke or in northwestern Washington County. Now, we do have some big storms right around Monroe County and Monroeville and north of you, right? That's where he is. That's right, because he was leaving Escambia County. He mentioned that in his last live shot and was heading up to Monroe County. Now, these storms are pretty vicious. They're producing a lot of lightning and heavy rain, but they are under severe limits, which is good. But this one we're watching, the one that's rolling across US 43 around Thomasville, and the one that did spark off a tornado warning that's working its way in closer and closer to northwestern Washington County. And the Boeing segment with this particular line is just a really nasty one because the wind speeds with this, at least in straight line form, are in excess of 60 miles per hour. So that is easily going to knock down trees and power lines if you're in northwest Washington County. If you know anyone that lives there, give them a heads up. You got a 56 mile per hour straight line wind. That's pretty much a guarantee. see. You may not have a rotating wind, but you have an excessive high wind that's going to be rolling right over you in a matter of minutes because that storm line is getting closer and closer to the US 45 corridor. And we're also going to be continuing to watch these storms in general as they sink south. If you're watching us in Mobile County, Baldwin County, you're thinking, well, when are the storms going to get to us? Unfortunately, it's going to be a while. We really believed, based on what we had seen in the model guidance, we were going to have the storms approaching Mobile and the eastern shore by 10 in the morning. I doubt that happens now. It's probably not going to be till 12 or 1 that we see those storms. More likely 1 o'clock that we see them approaching the port city. So it's going to be a while based on the slower movement of the line. This is another look at the radar. Again, we've got 3 storms we're watching. A strong storm around North Clarke County where there is circulation but no tornado warning. A tornado warning in the main line of storms that's approaching northwest Washington County, and a thunderstorm under severe limits, but it's where we do have a camera shot from our own Hal Shurik right there around northwestern Monroe County. Heavy rain and lightning, but thankfully no severe warning in that particular storm yet. So this line is what is going to be sinking its way to the south, and this is what we thought was going to just sweep all the way through our area by 2 in the afternoon. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Based on what we've seen from numerous runs in the Fox 10 Futurecast, it's going to get to about I-10, and then it's just going to stall, potentially providing a flash flooding threat and then thinning out by the time we head into tonight. So we have all modes of severe weather possible, from heavy rain, lightning, a tornado threat, a gusty wind threat, and a hail threat. You've got to stay weather aware and make sure, we just launched it yesterday, our brand new Fox 10 weather app. Get it in the App Store or the Google Play Store today, so you can keep up to date with this stuff as well. We're just going to stay with this until we see exactly what takes place as this storm system gets closer and closer to parts of northwestern Washington County, right around Milry, an active tornado. So that goes for the next 30 minutes. Technically, that part of the storm is not in Washington County yet. It's to the west in Wayne County, but it's on its way. It's tracking to the east at about 40 miles per hour, and that is along the main line of storms, the one we've been anticipating all morning since we came on the air 4 hours ago. What Matt's doing is showing you the bigger picture, and you can see storms are forming ahead of the main line. Obviously, we got to watch those to see if they can produce any severe weather threats. And we've also got the main line that's approaching Hattiesburg and Leakesville. So that's what we're going to be continuing to monitor over the next several minutes. And Matt, I just saw an update that they're going to continue the tornado warning, and the storm is now moving to the east at 45 miles per hour.
Yeah, they just cut the western end off of here, so they just clipped it down in the western part of Wayne County. So this thing is moving along like we've been showing. It's a Boeing segment at the moment, which means we're not seeing a whole lot of intense circulation right here on the front of it, but with how strong these straight line winds are that are coming along this Boeing segment, something can spin up pretty quickly along it. And what we've seen, we saw this a lot last time we went through this, is at the north end of these Boeing segments, it's almost like you run your hand through the water, you'll see those little spin-offs coming off in the water. Right on the northern edge of these, like right about here, we'll see these things spin up right on the edge of there, the northern edge of the Boeing segment. That's just where the turbulence is highest here. It's the atmosphere. You think of the air, it's a fluid, and it works the same way, and you can get those vortices and those spins happening in the same way, and that's what we're watching out for right there along the northern edge of this, right around where Waynesboro is, and that's going to take it pretty close to where Choctaw and Washington County come together right there. There's Milry, Choctaw, and Wayne County and Washington County all come together right there. That's about where we're going to see the strongest part of this go through. So once again, the big picture there, you can really see how everything is bowing out right along that main line, right through there, past Meridian, down Highway 45, and that's going to be sweeping through Washington County. Now, once again, the worst of that may go just to the north of Washington and Choctaw, but then it's got to go across Choctaw into Clarke County. And so we're going to be watching out around Coffeyville, around Groveville, around Thomasville. We're all going to have to watch out for this main line as it slides on through. And then look how it flattens out back here. This is the problematic part. It's flattening out, and that's going to make it take, whoops, I didn't mean to put that up there, make it take a little bit longer, or a lot longer, possibly, to move through. But what we're also going to see is, Michael, I'm kind of keeping an eye on this. There's storms now bubbling out
ahead of the line.
Yeah, out ahead of the main line. And what happens there is that those storms that bubble up out of the head of the main line, they get to use up all the energy for themselves, and they can grow into the worst of the storm. So that's a possibility too as we go through the morning.
Yeah, whenever you have these squall lines, the main threat with them is straight line winds. But if you out like
Clarke County.
Clarke County did go under, yeah, they did go under a tornado warning. I was going to say any storms that form ahead of the main line have a very good chance of showing rotation. So here's what we've got. A new tornado warning has been issued, this one until 9:15, and it's one of these situations like the first one in Washington County. It doesn't really include a lot of our viewing area or a lot of the county. It just includes this little sliver of Clarke County because of the same storm system. The same storm is going to be marching its way to the north and to the east, except instead of moving into northwestern Washington County, I think the Weather Service is thinking it goes more into and we have a third one. The third one that includes another part of Clarke County because of this storm that's just to the east of Thomasville. Matt, this is the one we were watching earlier.
Yes.
The Weather Service considered putting under a tornado warning, but they held off. So we're going to continue. Let's
go Thomasville because they have it on top of them.
Yeah, this is
what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's right over rural and right over US 43. That's going to be crossing over Old Highway 5 as it works its way to the north and to the east over Pine Hill. Now, it's not going to be in our viewing area long because once it crosses Old Highway 5 and past Round Hill, it's out of our area. So then it will not become a storm that we continue to follow carefully. But it would be over Thomasville if there is a tornado in the area. It's in the northern end of Clarke County, right around Thomasville, and marching its way to the north and to the east at 50 miles an hour. So this is a fast-moving storm, and hopefully you were paying attention to what Matt was saying earlier when we were watching that storm, and it was not under a tornado warning yet, but there was a sign of rotation that you were going ahead and getting prepared and getting into your safe place, because at this point it would almost be too late with that storm veering at 50 miles an hour the way it is. You blink and it's going to be almost out of the Thomasville area, but it's going to continue marching its way to the north and east into parts of Wilcox County. And that's what we're going to have to monitor, is for this system, that particular rotation signature, to move out of Clarke County and then follow another one that could move into the western part of Clarke County. So we've got two big storms we're watching. The one that's moving into parts of Clarke County north of Coffeyville. Matt, let's back up the loop a little bit. It would be, I guess it would be that right there.
We saw this last time. Where these segments bow out like this, you look at the northern part of the bow, and that is where we're seeing circulation taking hold. So these aren't the EF3 tornadoes that are going to be on the ground for a long time. They quickly spin up here along the bowing segments of the line. Not to say they can't do it, but they'll do damage. Put it that way. They're just not the ones that are going to show up perfectly on radar and going to be on the ground for a long time. These spin up real quick and they spin down real quick. That's what we're looking at with the environment as it stands now. That environment can change, but that's what we're looking at the moment. So we're seeing these bowing segments. It's the same deal with the one right on down here. So we got the bow here. We got a circulation at the top. We got another bow right there. We got a circulation at the top. So these are the two circulations that we're watching here, moving out of eventually into part of Washington County, possibly in part of Clarke County. This is the one that's the most problematic, though. This one we really got to keep an eye on, because this is basically right over Thomasville proper. And hopefully folks up there were listening just a few minutes ago. We were saying, yeah, this is something that could possibly spin up very quickly, and that's what we've got right there in Thomasville.
Matt, do me a favor on the velocity on the options list. If we could change it from velocity to storm relative velocity, I just want to see if we can get a change and a look at the inbound and outbound wind. It's in one of the scroll down menus.
Yeah, I'm finding it.
And there we go. Yeah, and that gives you a really good look at the signature. That's your tornado right there. It would be just east of US 43, east of Thomasville, and it's marching its way to the north and east toward Pine Hill and Yellow Bluff. Now, that's in Wilcox County, which is outside of our area, but Thomasville is in our area, and you need to be in shelter, lowest level of your home, away from doors, away from windows, preferably a first-floor bathroom. That's the place you want to be. And the reason why it's turned all blue and gotten noisy is because because the signature is getting farther away from the radar beam, which is located at Mobile Regional Airport. Because of the curvature of the Earth and the beam goes in a straight line, you're going to start to see less accuracy the farther you get from that beam. But the signature looks like it is pushing more toward Wilcox County based on that last sweep scan that we just got. And remember, this is one tornado warning. Another one could be moving into the western part of Clarke County, north of Coffeyville, from a storm system that is located in Wayne County, and we're going to continue to follow that as it works its way to the north and east. So we got 2 active warnings that we're watching and a major straight line wind threat from a line of storms that is just slowly at a snail's pace getting ready to push its way through to the north and east. But you got a huge Boeing segment that's marching its way north and eastward and producing a lot of problems. Soon we'll be doing that for Milry, Silas, Toxie, right around this section of Alabama Highway 17, and we'll be moving into Clarke County just to the north of Coffeyville. So the reason why it gets a little noisy again is because these locations are pretty far away from the radar beam, but they're still close enough that we can pretty much find where these signatures are. And when you get these little errors in the beam, once we get the next sweep scan, they typically go away. But this is what we've been forecasting for the last several days, that today would be the day where we had to watch out for heavy rain and lightning, gusty winds, possible tornadoes, hail, and the risk of flash flooding. Now, the main risk from Thomasville looks like it is over. The main part of the storm now is moving over into Wilcox County, which is outside of our area. So that means for now, in North Clarke County, you're safe from that particular storm, but we still have the main line to work its way through, and that'll take a little longer to take place. So if you're watching us down near the I-10 corridor, Mobile and Baldwin counties, and you're thinking, well, none of this is happening to us right now, this line of storms is tracking to the south. It's just doing so very, very slowly. And what we worry about is because it's moving so slowly, we may have a flash flooding problem early this afternoon. And the fact that those of you in the coastal spots, there's a chance you may not get any storms today, because once it hangs up around I-10, the Futurecast has been pretty consistent on it just dying off by the time we head in towards 6, 7 o'clock this evening, once we begin to lose the daytime heating process. So we've got scattered showers and storms that are forming on their own in the muggy, humid air. Do they have the potential to go severe? Absolutely. Storms that form ahead of the line could go tornadic, could dump hail, but the main line, without a doubt, is going to cause you problems, because you see it rolling through Wayne County right now with all that heavy rain and lightning as it's marching its way into northwestern Washington County, right around Milry, and could possibly also clip into northwestern Clarke County, north of Coffeyville. But the main line itself is also producing straight line winds in excess of 60 miles per hour. Nasty looking storms that are working their way toward the north and toward the east, with a couple of signatures that tornadic signatures are not overwhelming. In fact, the Weather Service has just pointed out that the one we were watching around Thomasville has moved into Wilcox County, which is outside of our area. So that one we're no longer going to be concerned with, but this one we're going to continue to watch. Not just because of the tornado threat, but because of also the straight line wind threat that could be showing up within that line of storms, because that could easily knock down trees and knock down power lines. And we still have a ways to go before the severe weather threat ends, because the tornado warning does not even end until this one for Clarke County doesn't even end until 9:15. The Weather Service just said that the line moving into northern Washington has a pronounced damaging wind signature with the potential for a spin-up tornado very quickly. Now, what does that mean? Well, usually that means you're looking at about an EF0 on the enhanced Fujita scale. So you're not looking at a large tornado in that aspect, but you're looking at a situation where if you basically draw the short straw and that tornado drops right over your house or on your street, it's going to cause major problems, but everyone else on the street might be fine. And it's something that might be on the ground for a matter of seconds and then move out. What Matt's pointing out is the velocity speed, the actual wind inside the storm, 67 miles per hour. That's in one direction. So even if there's no tornado, you've got wind speeds that are almost hurricane force that are pushing their way into northwestern Washington County, similar to what we dealt with on Wednesday night. So you've got to take that threat seriously, because these straight line winds That's what caused those the problems in the Porch Creek Indian Reservation a few weeks ago in Escambia County, Alabama. What looked like a tornado threat was actually a straight line wind threat, but the damage was tremendous from that mobile home park, and we could see a similar setup with the storms, with this line of storms that's pushing into eventually northwestern Washington County and into northwestern Clarke County. The tornado warning remains active until 9:15. Severe thunderstorm warnings remain active until at least 9:30. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep staying with this. We're going to keep following it. Matt, you know, we've been on this for several days. We were hopeful we would get this thing through here by 2, but it just doesn't look like that's going to be the case today.
No, unfortunately, at the tail end of this, looks like it's going to be dragging through pretty slowly. We've been watching this on the Futurecast, and the Futurecast, the high resolution, it's updated every hour. So this isn't, you know, something that gets old here after, you know, 6-8 hours. This is updated quite often, and you'll see the line here coming in around 11 this morning. This is probably where we're going to see some of the nastiest weather. It's around 11 to 1 o'clock as this drops on down, and then we get to around 3 o'clock. And Michael was saying, you know, some of our coastal areas, maybe just kind of watching this off to the north and not seeing much. You see the heavy rain, and as it sort of flattens out like that, that's when you start to worry about going from a severe event going into a flooding event, and that happens in the springtime pretty often. And we may see at 3 o'clock less of a chance of severe weather here in this big old blobbed out line, but the heavy rain just tracking from west to east right across the I-10 corridor through our metro areas, and that may become the biggest concern as we head later on into the day. There's 5 o'clock, still showing a few stronger storms, but mainly a big rain shield there around 5 o'clock, and then 6-7 o'clock it's done. So this may become once again more of an afternoon event, but I still think we're going to have over the next couple of hours, as we head towards lunchtime, a severe weather threat that will continue up through the late morning, up through about lunchtime, and then it may transition over to a flooding threat as we head into the afternoon.
Yeah, that's right, Matt. I was just looking at the latest modeling data myself on this, and it does look like exactly what you were saying, that this thing is going to decrease and decelerate in speed, but the threat for flash flooding is going to remain active. The threat for straight line winds is going to remain active, and unfortunately, the threat for tornadoes remains active. The tornado warning continues till 9:15. The warning that we were watching for Thomasville earlier, it's officially been dropped. So where you see flashing is for Wilcox County, which is outside of our viewing area. So we do not have to focus on that, but we still have to focus on storms that are working their way in toward parts of western Clarke County and northwestern Washington County from the main line of storms that is creating a lot of problems with heavy rain and lightning, and it's tracking its way slowly to the south and to the east. Right now, it looks like the heavy rain and lightning has finally arrived in Milry, right around Alabama Highway 17. That's Healing Springs Avenue, that's Dunbar, and that's Britton League Road. And that's where you've got the heaviest rain and the most ferocious lightning tracking its way to the east. So in the northern end of Washington County, which is primarily a hunting territory, I know a lot of hunting camps are up there in the Milry area. So anyone familiar with that lay of the land, that is where the roughest part of the storms are pushing their way through right now. This is MLK Jr. Avenue, Alabama Highway 17, which runs north and south, and your main line is getting ready, which is bowing out, by the way, and that's when you see this little curvature shape with the radar imagery. That means that the straight line winds are getting more and more intense, and we've already seen them approaching hurricane force. And that is not even including whether or not a tornado is on the ground. That's just the winds from the main part of the storm, and that's why you've got to make sure you're staying in shelter, indoors, and that's what we're going to continue to monitor over the next several minutes as these storms are working their way to the east. Now, surrounding the tornado warnings are these severe thunderstorm warnings because of that very same thing, because of the risk of straight line winds that could be working their way through, causing numerous problems with 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, all marching in the same direction from west to east. And you do not want to try to travel through any of that. So, for example, if you live in Chatham, you want to stay there. Do not get in your car and drive anywhere, and certainly don't try to drive through that squall line, because that is where we have a lot of problems on the roadways when people try to march their way through these severe storms. Stay where you are until the danger is over for your individual area. Those of you inland up along US 84, your severe weather threat ends first. Those of you around the I-10 corridor, we were hopeful it would be over by about 1. It may be lasting until about 5 or 6 o'clock when that line begins to stall, and the Futurecast has again been pretty consistent on that idea at about, I believe, 8:50 or 8:55. I think it's 8:55. We'll get the new extended HRRR model, and that's basically a model that updates hourly, but it will go out for about 36 or 48 hours. I'll be very anxious to see that when it's finally finished rendering, but we will get a full look at exactly what's going to happen on the scope and scale of the storms that are going to be rolling through today, how the setup will be for tonight, and what the potential will be for tomorrow, because, Matt, it's still going to be a while till we're back in that dry, stable air on Thursday.
Yeah, it's going to be a little while. What I wanted to bring up now, the Storm Prediction Center just gave what they call a Mesoscale update. So it's basically as the storms are ongoing type of update. And obviously they're keeping a close eye on that Boeing segment, but they're also saying we need to really be wary, and this is what I was just mentioning, of these storms that are out ahead of the main line. The squall line. Strong straight line winds, 60 to 65, maybe even 70 miles per hour, and weak tornadoes can spin up, weak tornadoes can spin up along that main line. These ones is where they're warning strong tornadoes can spin up if they get the right atmosphere going. There's lots of instability out ahead of this main line, and what happens is when you got these storms ahead of the main line, they've got their own environment to work with. They don't have to share the energy with the whole line. They get to use it all for themselves, and that's why these smaller storms out ahead can actually spin up worse tornadoes. And that's what the Storm Prediction Center is just mentioning in their latest write-up. They really want to keep track of all these ones that are forming right now down around Mobile, tracking up towards Bay Minette, and then continuing to track up around Monroeville and Brute. And these are the ones out ahead of it that we're going to have to watch very closely to see if any spin-ups occur. Now, at the moment, that's not happening, but we did see a little bit of that up around Thomasville, where we did have that one quickly spin up and then move into Wilcox County and out of our viewing area. So we're going to continue to track these. Right now, like I said, no warnings in any of these right now that are around Pineville, that are around Bay Minette, that are coming up towards Atmore. No warnings in these yet, but we need to be wary of these. These could quickly spin up into something more destructive as they continue to work their way off to the north and east. And that was the latest update from the Storm Prediction Center that they just brought down.
Thanks a lot, Matt. And the SPC, they're the ones that do those risk zones that you see us show so often, the severe weather risk zone scale that goes 1 to 5. They're the ones that release these meso discussions, and it really gives us a good indication of what's happening. And Matt, the velocity right here between Silas and Milry.
Confirmed, yeah. Oh, that was, okay, I'm sorry, confirmed one over the Thomasville earlier. That was for a funnel cloud, it looks like. And this one, they're warning us that around Silas, that is spinning up to a stronger storm there.
Wow. Yeah. Well, whenever you see a color this bright, that indicates that the straight line wind itself is ferocious. What Matt was mentioning is the other storm we were watching, the one over Thomasville. There was a confirmed circulation over Thomasville earlier in the morning. Now, that storm has moved off into Wilcox County. Thankfully, that one's gone. But this one we're watching very carefully. A tornado warning that's active until 9. And I believe this portion for Northwest Clarke goes till 9:15. And there is a severe thunderstorm warning that surrounds it. The wind speeds are approaching hurricane force, 68 miles per hour. That is not a gust. That is a sustained wind. Do not try to travel across Alabama Highway 17 right now. You do not want to be going through any of that as that line is marching its way to the south and east. Now, the good news is the wind intensity will weaken later this afternoon, meaning that the odds of tornadoes popping up as the line approaches I-10 will go down. My concern is the storms that we're seeing ahead of the main line could go tornadic, the wind threat for our inland counties that we're seeing now, and then the threat for potential flash flooding when this line finally gets to Interstate 10, because I think the tornado potential in this line will decrease by about 3, 4 o'clock. But if we continue to see rain this heavy and it stalls over I-10, you're going to be looking at numerous flash flooding problems for parts of Mobile and Baldwin County. That's not set in stone, but just going based off what we're seeing with some of the latest trends on the radar. So we're just going to continue to watch this and follow it over the next several minutes. And Matt is, continuing to monitor the storm that moved off into Wilcox County, showing you the main line and how it stretches from the outskirts of Clarke County into northwestern Washington County. And we're just going to continue to follow all of that as it works its way through. Now, these storms south of it are forming ahead of the main line. They're under severe limits, but they are producing heavy rain and lightning. You're seeing some of that right around McIntosh. You're seeing that around Mount Vernon, Bay Minette, Saraland, Atmore, Bratt, even over into Bruton and Evergreen and Monroeville. So you have numerous thunderstorms that are showing up outside of that main line that are not severe right now, but still have to be monitored because very quickly they could turn severe because you've got enough humid air. You've got enough rotating of the wind with height that can create sustainable updrafts. All of that is possible with any of these storms that show up throughout the course of the morning and even ones that show up throughout the course of the afternoon. So we're going to stay with this as it works its way to the south and east because, as we've mentioned, this is not a fast-moving line of storms at all. Matt's pulling up the watch warning map. Now, the tornado watch that's in yellow, that stays up till at least 2 this afternoon. Hopefully that doesn't get extended. It might. And then you got severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings along the main line. But not only that, you see this flashing dark red. Those are flash flood warnings. And that is, again, one potential problem that we could also deal with as that line works its way through because it's moving so slowly, is that we could end up with a flash flooding threat for our area by the time we get into late this morning and into early this afternoon. So that's what we'll have to be watching for later in the day. But the first threat is going to come from the gusty straight line winds and the intense amounts of lightning. We just got a new update from the Weather Service, and they've said that they are going to let the Washington County part of the tornado warning lapse at the top of the hour. It's a predominant wind threat, straight line wind threat that will continue for North Washington, and they're going to monitor for additional circumstances. So this tornado warning will be dropped out in the next 4 minutes. Then this one goes for about the next 15 minutes, the one that goes for northwestern Clarke County. So we're going to be continuing to watch that and monitor it over the next several minutes. And what I want to do, while we've got the radar at full screen, I'm just going to make one adjustment on the Fox 10 Futurecast because we've just now gotten that new HRRR should be in by now, and I want to go ahead and set it so we can basically run the clock forward for the next 48 hours gradually and monitor this because I'm going to be very anxious, Matt, to run it hour by hour and see how everything kind of plays itself out when we monitor this situation. So I'll pause that and Matt, I'll let you kind of take us through that. But we just got that in, and let's kind of see what the latest projection is for the timing on this. So it looks like it's going to roll through at 11 a.m. It's still going to be west of Monroeville. Then we get to noon, and it's going to be approaching I-65 at that point. Then we go a little farther in time, and then 1, it's on the eastern shore, Daphne, Spanish Fort, Atmore, and then we get to 2, and it approaches Pensacola. And then by the time we get to about 3, it goes a little 4 o'clock. Notice that we still have rain and storms showing up east of Fairhope and east of Gulf Shores, and then with still some additional showers and storms on the back edge of that will die off by about 7 o'clock. And then we'll still have another round of potential showers that could show up tomorrow, but those would mainly be tomorrow night. So we're rolling through into Wednesday, and this is 6 o'clock. And you see there are going to be some storms that develop. They're going to be more scattered based. They have the potential to be strong or severe, but the setup tomorrow is not going to be as widespread or pronounced as what we've got today. Today's threat is obviously the bigger one. They just issued a new severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Choctaw, Clarke, and Washington counties. So that basically extends the warning, Matt, that was essentially going to be allowed to lapse. That was around Milry. So it looks like the threat is starting to transition more to straight line wind, at least at this point.
Yes, that's exactly what that indicates to us. Of course, what we've seen here, let me get back to the velocity here with that bowing segment, is that you can see circulations pop up along that really at any point, because it's just they're very, very quick. And let me get my pointer up here. Well, it's right here. Right here, you can see right through there. It's bowing out right through there. Now there is some noise here on the radar when you get out to this distance with the velocity. You get some returns there. You see all that purple there. It's just some bad returns, but that's just a limitation of the technology. Here's what we're really keeping an eye on, this bowing segment right here. And I'm going to keep an eye on right here on this northern part of that bowing segment, because that's where, if we're going to get another tornado to quickly spin up, that's where it's going to happen. And we're looking at going into Clarke County there, just around Coffeyville, maybe the north side of Coffeyville, then tracking along Highway 154 up towards Thomasville. So if you're in Thomasville, I mentioned this earlier, we were looking at a circulation. We're saying, yeah, it looks like this one could spin up very quickly. You need to go ahead and be ready for it. Then it did. The same thing could happen right through here. So we want to keep a very close eye on it. If you're in Thomasville, especially Coffeyville, this is basically on your door, but then it's going to be moving across the county towards Thomasville. And that's the next area we're going to have to keep an eye on with that bowing segment. Now, a little farther down to the south here, it's not bowing out in the same direction. And what I mean by that is it's more straight up and down here. Up here we have a little notch, and that's the areas that we worry about. Down here, it doesn't have as much of the strong winds going down towards Chatham, so you're going to get more of a typical thunderstorm type wind there, not the severe wind that you're going to get up around Coffeyville with here in the next few minutes. So we'll continue to monitor that. We know the areas to look, and we'll continue to watch the areas that show the most potential, and we'll continue to do that here as we go through the morning.
All right, thanks a lot, Matt. Again, if you're just joining us, I know we're approaching 9 o'clock. I'm meteorologist Michael White, along with meteorologist Matt Barentine of the Fox 10 Storm Tracker Center. We jumped on the air because tornado warnings have been issued for parts of Washington and Clarke County because of that main line of storms that's sinking its way to the south and east that right now is in North Washington and approaching northwestern Clarke County. The main threat with this, heavy rain, lightning, and straight line winds. There is a tornado threat. Now, the tornado threat's not overwhelming, but as we've seen from our last several severe weather outbreaks, straight line winds have caused us numerous problems. We have seen wind speeds of 60, 70 miles per hour, almost hurricane force, blowing in one direction that we can see can knock down trees and power lines. So you've got to stay in your safe place. Lines approaching, try to drive through the squall line, which right now is right around Alabama Highway 17. The Washington County part of the tornado warning is gone. The one for northwestern Clarke County remains active until 9:15. So that one still goes for about 15 minutes. If the Weather Service decides they're going to let that one expire, then what we'll do is we'll roll into Studio 10. They just said they're going to continue this one till 9:15. Where you just see this small little box of red, this little polygon, that is where the possible tornado is located. It would clip northwestern Clarke County and approach Alabama Highway 69. So we've got a dangerous storm setup that's going to be rolling into northwestern Clarke County, north of Coffeyville, that's approaching Alabama Highway 69 and continuing to work its way to the east at about, I believe, 40 to 45 miles per hour. And Matt is actually pulling up. It's moving to the east at 50. This one's moving very fast. It's moving to the east at 50 miles per hour. And what Matt's doing is pulling up some of the locations that are in this area for me on the second monitor that I'm looking at. I've got two monitors here, one that shows what you see, the on-air product, and another one that's got this really great high-resolution map on it. And so we've got Clear Springs Drilling in that area. We got Cedar Point Church. We've also got West Bend in that area. The Scotch State Wildlife Management area is in this general region. So if any of those areas sound familiar to you, you need to make sure you are in your safe place, away from doors and away from windows. The middle portion of your house, hallway, closet, hallway, bathroom, always a good idea. If you live in an apartment, you need to be friends with the first floor neighbor. You need to go to the first floor. And we've already mentioned that anyone that lives in a mobile home home doesn't need to be in one today. Today was one of those days that you needed to just make arrangements to stay with a friend in a foundation-based building. You just don't want to take any chances with winds this ferocious based on what we've seen the last few times we've had severe weather outbreaks working their way through. We're pulling up the velocity product where we look for the inbound and outbound wind flow. Matt, let's switch it to storm relative velocity real quick. I just want to check and see if we get a better sign of an indication of rotation within this particular storm. It would be, gosh, I guess it would be right around here potentially, Matt. You think that could be the rotation signature?
It's very broad, so that's good news in the sense that it is a broad circulation. That means not likely to be anything on the ground, but we're getting wind gusts here on the front edge of this, probably 60, 65 miles per hour that are going to do damage. So that's going to be really the main threat. But once again, when we see this bowing out, we see those strong wind gusts, it creates so much turbulence on that leading edge. You can quickly see spin ups along it. And like I was mentioning, we definitely keep an eye on the very sort of the top edge of these bows. That's where we typically see the most turbulence and where you're most likely to see something spin up quickly. So if you're in Bashi or Thomasville, these are the areas where, as it crosses Clarke County, as this whole segment with these strong winds does, that's where we could see another quick spin up tornado. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. Right now it's pretty broad, which is good news, but it's something to keep an eye on. And as Michael was saying, this warning is going to be dropped at 9:15. We'll see if it's continued on after that. It may just be dropped and kept up as a severe thunderstorm warning. If it does, we're going to take you back to programming here with Studio 10 and let you check out Studio 10. And then, of course, we'll keep monitoring this as we go through the morning and then come back in if we start to get more tornado warnings.
One other thing, Matt, I want us to do, let's go back to that Futurecast for anyone joining us late. Let's go through that again, and we're just going to run it for the next 48 hours so we can go through the event today and tomorrow. So here's 9 o'clock where we are right now. Now, the main line, you see it there on Thomasville, Chatham, and Leakesville at 10 o'clock. We go forward to 11. And look at the hail possibilities that could show up within that line, in addition to straight line winds and tornadoes. But 11 o'clock, it would be around Lucedale, Citronelle, Jackson, Monroeville. Then we get to midday. Midday, it starts to approach Mobile and the eastern shore. We'll go forward a little bit more. And right there, 2 o'clock, by 2 yesterday, the whole thing was already south of the Florida Panhandle, and now it's got this thing just sort of stalling right around Interstate 10. So this is 4 in the afternoon, and it's almost in the exact same place. That's one reason why there could be the risk of flash flooding potentially. Now, the good news is, Matt, as we've seen, that by the time we get to 4 in the afternoon, the tornado threat drops tremendously, which is great news, but the rain threat's going to continue. And then as we march this forward, the rain will fizzle out by about 7 o'clock, 7 or 8 o'clock. It'll die itself off. But the storms won't totally end till about 7. So this is going to be a little while longer. And what we're going to do right now as we approach 9:06 is we are going to go to break first, or are we going to dive right? We're going to go to break first, and then when we come back, we're going to bring you Studio 10 with Joe and Chelsea. So for meteorologist Matt Barentine, I'm meteorologist Michael White. We will cut back in if we get any new tornado warnings. Make sure you stay weather aware.